DUDU Quintanilla, director of art, Abramovich, director, Juan Soto is editor, and Richard Daisy Ellis, producer. I'm going to ask a first question, and then please raise your hands, and I can give you the floor. My first question is for Manuel, but also for Rachel, Daisy, GEMA. I would like to ask you, the idea of this film, how does it emerge and you start to work along with Manuel from the production side with the film? In my films, I'm interested in imitating people to turn into characters, and this transit, this movement between what I call from person to character, I think we all live in a certain way, portraying characters in order to live and even to survive in some cases in the world, in the system, or within our families. So in the last few years, I've been working upon masculinity in my last few projects, and masculinity as a character, for example, as genre and gender, and the patriarch makes us play this role of being man, being strong, to not show your feelings and to not break down or to not be vulnerable. So therefore, from that place is the way I approached this film. And when I met the protagonists in the social media, I felt a lot of fascination and admiration, because Lalo directed his own life for his virtual audience, and with a lot of humor, irony, and creativity. He had created this character of Lalo Santos, who Mexican macho, who, and to a certain extent, it impressed me that from that place, how he felt he was thinking about many of the issues that I wanted to deal with in this film: sexual work, HIV, the idea of masculinity, racism, colonialism, and a lot of political ideas that I wanted to address in the film. And the film was thought of like as an invitation. I always think of films from the point of view of a place of invitation to collaborate together and to make a film together that perhaps I didn't know what the process was exactly, but we were talking about trust. It was a 4-year process of building up, constructing the film together, to think how to transform all of the political ideas and the things that we had thought of in scenes which are in the final film. So therefore, that was the starting point, and I'll allow the producers to answer. Well, what we started... Excuse me. We worked with Manuel Abramovich in a previous film, which was called Soldado, which was premiered in 2017 in Generation in Berlin. It was an experience which was magnificent, the truth be said. It was a process which was very beautiful in constructing the film. And in a very short while later, Manuel came along with the project, which it was called Oasis, that he developed here in Kuzmira Berriak. He had a conceptual development which was quite solid. Manuel is always a director who always presents ideas very finished and complete, with a visual development. And the truth is, we started to work together, I think it was at the beginning of 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And shortly after the project, Rachel joined the project, who we had known quite a while back, and David Hurst from France also came on board after the presentation in Society of Project and the Visual Durel Festival in Switzerland. And the truth is that it was, I have to say, that more than a co-production, it was a collaboration, I think, which was very in-depth collaboration of the three of us in the project, along with Larissa Oroveri, who is my partner. And I think it was a participation and work which was, of the three of us, or the four of us, better said, with Manuel from the outset, a process, well, it ended up being quite long due to the pandemic, which has happened to many of the films that are here, and here we are. Well, to complement this, I knew Manuel's work, his previous work, and I admired his work enormously, and I talked to GEMA, first of all, on whether she had any new project, and she sent me his concept of Pornomelancolía, which I loved from the outset, from the beginning, and then after understanding how they were thinking, how to do the process for preparing and production, and the collaboration between Lalo and Manuel, and the way of to think about that process, that construction. I loved it very much, and I got on board the project, and I feel a lot of gratitude to be able to participate in this process, and we've learned a lot as well. Hi, for the director, Lance Ensayo from Peru, I'd like to know, beyond what the co-production means as an economic model, why do you think it's becoming a fundamental tool in Latin American cinema, and in the specific case of your film? Co-production. Well, I think it's the way of being able to make a film, isn't it, at the end of the day? These are films that are made with small funds and very adjusted, shall we say, budgets, and it's a critical and generate, a critical point of view, open up debates, and I understand that through co-productions we can just simply manage to be able to make the films. Excuse me, but to help it, I think all producers, we have limited levels, and collaboration, it's a way of working, everyone contributes throughout the process, their different know-how and different skills. At this moment, I thought without valuable collaborators like this, it's unthought of to make a film, in many cases.
Hola, Manuel.
Hi, Manuel. Hi. I would like to ask you whether you could define quite clearly the method of work, where the documentary finishes and where fiction starts, and what is the possibilities of improvisation that you provided, and things that randomly appear in the film, your film, and not in your films, not only this one. Yes. It seems that a good way of talking about this would be to tell what the process of the film is in particular. And I would like to say that I feel a bit sad that Lalo, the protagonist, is not here. I would have loved him to be him, so we could talk about the process together. The film started as an invitation. I always like the idea of inviting someone to reflect together upon this movement that we do of being people and being characters. Sometimes the characters help us to live or to survive. And in this film, the first time I met Lalo, we got together over a coffee, and I proposed we make the film together. And I told him it was going to be difficult to define between fiction and documentary, because we were going to take certain elements of his life from things that he'd already told me, and conversations that we had when we got to know each other. And through those conversations, I was going to construct a script, what I call the base or the hypothetical script. Then the film is different, but it's like a foundation, so as to say, or a base, so that we can ground the whole project. It was an open invitation, which always has to do with trust, the trust that enables us to get to know each other and to develop the different scenes. There are many segments in the film that are inspired on things that he told me about his life, and many others that are staged, that we set up together. And at moments the shoot seemed quote-unquote documentary, but more of situations of observing, albeit it's not a word that I like, but in other times the shoot was fiction with more set up scenes. And the same thing happens with the shooting of the porn flick, because I'm not a porn director, but there were two shoots happening at the same time, two films, Pornomelancolía and the Zapata. There was another director, the Zapata porno film. It exists. It's going to be able to be seen soon. By the way, it's going to be published. It's a Mexican producer, which are Mecos Films, that make pornographic films upon Mexican subject matter. Diablo is a Mexican director. He's the director who appears in the film. So therefore, it was very interesting, because during the shoot, at times, both films, we thought they were like sister films. Or at times, every film was separate, what was happening in each film. And then Pornomelancolía took a loan, shall we say, of the other porno flicks. I was not interested in the sex. Actually, there's no explicit sex in the film, because Pornomelancolía takes porno as a stage to talk about intimacy, to talk about life stories, to talk about vulnerable characters who suffer and who feel alone, and as we all feel at this time. And so therefore, I like to think that Pornomelancolía is not a film only on pornography. It's a film about a feeling that I think reflects this a period of a great loneliness that exists nowadays, especially post-pandemic. And I think that from that point of view is how we constructed the film, thinking about porn as a stage to have those small, intimate scenes of emotion of the people while they're waiting to enter into this scene. And I think that's what life is about, how being out of the scene, characters and the characters that we perform in order to be there whichever way we can. Hi, Manuel. Hugo Sanchez from the Tela agency in Argentina. You said before, albeit you answered it, could you complete the idea before you were talking about the new masculinities that exist and the issue of the character and the person? What does the world, what does it reflect in the film? Porno, why did you address porno to talk about these issues? Beyond the fact that it's fiction. Well, the issue of masculinity, I think, it came from a very personal perspective, because I was questioning my own masculinity as of late, and the character that I learned to, with that script that was given when I was born, and now perhaps, now I'm 34 years old, and 13 years ago I started to question, do I want to continue along and playing this role in the script? This is what I want to be, this man who, that all life long, all my life, I thought I had to be. And I thought it was very interesting, this world of gay porno, with the people with whom I worked, and above all, it seemed fascinating Diablo's work, for example, who he feels that he reflects upon those archetypes, masculinity, and also it appears in the story how the story is told from the point of view of men. And what I admired about Lalo was exactly that, how he was aware, and that's what I felt I could learn most from him, how he used masculinity as a tool for his audience, and he was completely aware of the character that he was portraying, and it was what was going to work for the audience. And I thought that was fascinating, and I still believe it's fascinating about Lalo, and I admire him very much for it. And that's perhaps what we've got in common. Perhaps both of us are questioning that character of being a man and to be alone or lonely. Hi, I've got two questions. from Manuel. The first is, could you talk a bit about how the production was carried out during the shoot? That is to say, I'd like to understand, how do you approach intimate situation with a crew? Was it a small crew with a camera, or was it a period of living together or coexistence between the characters and the crew? Could you talk about that? And the second question is, when did you take the decision of vis-a-vis the camera? How did you make that decision for shooting the film? Intimacy for me is only possible from a position of trust, especially after for a 4-year work for a crew and team of over 30 people and many brilliant collaborators who are here today, which we thought about the film for a very long process. I always start from the idea of trust. Trust for me is the starting point of any work that wants to achieve a certain amount of intimacy. So therefore I took a lot of time. I took my time to start the project with all of the people who were going to participate in order to get to know each other, to open up and to see who we were, not only them, men and women, but also myself. And exactly that. I think that as from trust, one opens up and one trusts others so that things can happen. And for me, it was very exciting to feel that intimacy on the screen. I think it's a reflection of a long work process and a lot of listening, because a process like that, it deals with listening and to be able to understand how we're feeling and to be able to stop after the scenes and take a break whenever it was necessary, to know how we feel when to come into the scene and leave the scene or come out of the scene. So therefore I think that intimacy is generated that way, I believe. I didn't remember what your second question is. Oh, the camera, yes. In general, the camera in films, my training was photography and camera, so I came from DOP and then I started to direct. That's how I came to films. My films have got the way we gaze on others, for example, and the idea was to tell the stories in a frame. It's a work of searching on the set, for example. We always address the situation, what the scenes were going to be like, or what we wanted to talk about. Sometimes there was very long filming situations, for example. Like I told you, it's not a film that had a script and the actors had to portray their characters and I had the control. No, it's a film that we did together, like as if collaborating together. Quite often we had, a layout and we knew which way we wanted to go, and we took a lot of takes or several takes of the scenes, and then it was an issue of understanding the situation, to know what we wanted to talk about, and then how to frame things. I like to relate the camera and sound, because sometimes the frame, everything that we leave outside the frame is much more present, and that's what I was interested in. Everything that we don't see, but the sound allows us to imagine. This is something that I love to think when I take a frame, what thing is unnecessary to be seen, but we're going to be able to imagine. I like that idea of allowing the spectator to complete the film.
Hola.
Hi, Adra Maxuina, and Mexican journalist. The first thing, Mexico in this case, for example, they eat tacos, they say chamaco. And Santos lived in Oaxaca, because obviously the film is Argentina, or it's got a co-production with Mexico. But how much weight that Mexico has, not only in this film, and as your gaze and perspective on this film, Lalo Santos is not here. He's complained on social media. He's caused a controversy. He says he should be happy, but he's not. So therefore, I'd like to ask you whether you've talked to him, what's his complaint, and why, because he doesn't agree. Why doesn't he agree? Because that's part of his porno. Is that part of his Pornomelancolía? Well, Mexico, this is the first time I've worked in Mexico. I was invited to be able to develop a project there, and from a having listened to, well, knowing about Diablos, the porno director, knowing about his work and how he reflected, as I said before, through his porno production about certain ideas of national identity. Well, it's a project which was, it's a co-production, as you say, and it was done with a Mexican crew and from people from a lot of respect, from a position of a lot of respect. I work with the crew, and above all with the people who appear in the film. It was a project which was made together in collaboration. Lalo's situation, it's very sad that he can't be here today answering the questions along with me and expressing whatever things he wanted to express about the things he's feeling. It's, apart from sad, I'm a bit misconcerted because as I said, it was a long process of collaboration. And I would have loved to have, as we did in the film, setting up a platform so that we can together invite the people to see it and to discuss many issues that we shared and which are political and which are very important for us, and I think for everyone. I would have loved for him to be here today, telling us whatever he feels, and on my behalf also making films with people. I feel this as a risk and a learning process. I feel I make films and I learn in each project, so therefore I'm completely open so that I can understand what I might be feeling now. As of late, for example, when we were organizing his trip to come to the premiere, and I'd love to be able to talk to him and listen to what he's feeling and rethink what things I could have done better throughout the process. That would, obviously, we have to continue to think, but I think working with people involves a lot of risks. And I believe that we have to confront those risks, because I believe in cinema and art as a political weapon to create voices together, such as from dissidents, and to criticize the world we live in, which is falling to pieces and isolates us and leaves us more and more alone. And that's what I want to say. First row. Hi, good afternoon. I would like to know whether in the directing process whether you dealt with other people who dedicate themselves to Lalo's work, or was it exclusively just with him, or whether Lalo also told you things about other colleagues in his line of work. Thank you. Well, as you saw, the project, there were many people who participated, not only the crew, which is more than 30 people, but all of the other porno actors who appear in the shoot, the director, and all of the other people with whom we collaborated with. So therefore, the truth is, it was a collaboration process, but nowadays, I don't understand it, but from knowing that Lalo could be feeling different as of late vis-a-vis the film, well, I continue to ask myself questions. I would like to take advantage that we've got Juan SOTO, the editor, and DUDU Quintanilla, the director of art, artistic director. Could you talk about your type? The art is very well constructed in the editing. That's the impression I have when I see it. I'd like to ask you about how you worked in Pornomelancolía, both of you. Manuel is a director who has made many films, or several films, and all of them are very admirable, with a cinematographic maturity, which I respect very much. and with which I connect from the outset. Apart from that, the fact that we're friends, and so forth, the dialogue was very easy. The film, in the process, in the editing process, what we tried to do was bring to each of the scenes or each moment of the film those issues, political issues that were floating around the idea of the film. The idea of the film was something very large, but how to bring it to that such a constructed way that Manuel wanted was something that was very difficult to do. It took a lot of work, but now, just after seeing it, I feel very proud of the work we've done, because all of these things, even the controversy and all the issues that Lalo's feeling now, it's as if they're reflected very transparently in the film. How the film was made, not only how it was made, but what does the film think about masculinity, about your body, about making films, and what Manuel said, film with people. And therefore, above all, the editing process is to modulate all of those different issues that were quite political and bring them down to earth, which means is the scenes could construct a narrative in a logical way and would take us on a journey, and I feel a journey of many emotions, because Lalo goes through many emotions throughout the film, and I think Manuel had already been done it in his previous films, but I think in this film, which is so complex, it's very well achieved. Hi, good evening. When Manuel invited me to make the film, first of all, he invited me to meet Lalo with material that was available, which was his personal character that I met through his social media. And we thought together of setting up a layout of interviews without proposing an idea for the third part of the shoot, which is where we made the quote-unquote two films, to know and meet these people and then propose an idea to them, which was going to flow through their stories, two shooting layouts which were going to intertwine. We had many issues that we wanted to talk about. We had an enormous piece of paper on a wall, I remember, with a layout of devices, as Manuel calls them, and in those devices, which were all of these issues, we started to fill them in with what the people were telling us. And it's interesting, from the director of art, for example, is to construct those stories or those characters that were going to be captured recorded by the cameras, and all those times when they had to wait, and from what they told us and the meetings that we had with a long series of interviews before coming to Mexico with a proposal. Very aware of the idea of coming from other places, be it Mexico, with an enormous amount of questions and consultations that we're going to do with help me in the costume design, makeup, artistic production. So therefore, the idea was how we investigated or documented ourselves and set up this film. Quite crazy to understand from where we were getting the information from, but all of that information at the end of the day, and all of those issues arose from talks through Zoom and with questions. And I remember the first question that we asked all the people is, what's your family of origin? What's your current family? To understand where these people came from and where they are nowadays. And these were questions that we answered also throughout the process, albeit the film deals with masculinity, techno-capitalism and all our issues that are trapped on the screen that you were able to see. There are many questions or many of the emotional side of things which are a bit invisible, and the truth be said, they have to do with how everyone feels with relation to those issues, or how one feels affected by those issues that we wanted to be critical with. Another question? Hi, I'd like to ask you about sending the idea or pitching the idea of the film, but you've gone through different forums, and it's a co-production, it's a film which deals with issues that perhaps in some places are a bit taboo, and I'd like to know what the process of the selling the film, where have you approached this from, what are going to be the strategies you're going to use? Thank you. You mean sell it as a project? Yes. The truth is, Manuel always works with aesthetic, political, and visual concepts which are so clear. In this project, for me, as well as in his previous project, El Soldado, he was always... It was always very easy to communicate. And I think that it seems that the film, which obviously deals with all of the issues that DUDU and Manuel and Juan were talking about, they also address a subject matter which is that of living and coexisting in a world with social media where we're permanently manufacturing characters. So therefore, all of the topics were quite resounded quite a lot. And in the first presentations that we gave, we had a clip, a very short clip, which was filmed again, but it's the one of the, which is the casting process, which was very easy to develop, and it was very powerful at the same time. The people, for example, it happened with David, for example. David was in the pitch, and he got on board immediately after listening to it. The film, you could see it, and Manuel, the truth is, he's a director who has aesthetic which is quite unique, singular, one could say, and very attractive. And I think it's so powerful, and I think it made things easy, albeit you might think, well, okay, porno subject matter, well, it seems that, but it was always relatively simple to get to the funds and to bring the partners on board. Perhaps I'm the European Caucasian or white person, shall we say. And when I found the project, when I saw the project, he tenido un vínculo. I do films. And I knew about Manuel's work to converse, and above all, to find and to talk down paths which are irreducible. And I think everyone's got a bit of that. Unyielding, for example. And it was a person and a character who is unyielding, which is what I believe. So that's why I came on board. Manuel, I'm going to ask you a last question to finish the first conference. We know your film with San Sebastián with Soldado. We've seen your films. You're resident in Ictus Media Berriac, and you come to the official section. What do you feel like coming back to San Sebastián and to the official section? How does it feel? Well, despite the circumstances, it's an enormous honor to be here again. The film, I start to think about it here in those 6 incredible weeks where I was invited in a space to be able to think about the film, to think about all of these ideas, to listen to all of the conversations that I'd had with Lalo and record them and think about scenes and to think about ideas and proposals. So therefore, it's an enormous honor to be here, and thank you very much. Well, thank you to all of you. Let's give them a round, say farewell with a round of applause. Thank you.